Vasily Petrenko este o adevărată stea a muzicii clasice. Unul dintre cei mai căutați dirijori din lume la momentul actual, artistul s-a format sub îndrumarea unor legende precum Maris Jansons, Yuri Temirkanov sau Esa-Pekka Salonen. Este dirijorul principal a 3 prestigioase ansambluri, Orchestra de Tineret a Uniunii Europene, Orchestra Philharmonicii Regale din Liverpool și Orchestra Philharmonicii din Oslo, alături de care a concertat în ediția din 2019 a Festivalului Internațional George Enescu.
When you're a chief conductor, you can know the orchestra much more in depth rather than you are just a guest conductor. And over the longer period of time, you can achieve I guess, larger and bigger results with orchestra in terms of understanding each other, in terms of flexibility in the music, in terms of developing colors on the orchestra, different groups and different ideas, and also developing audience, educating and creating audience in various places. So to me, it's great to be in 3 places. I like to be busy. And I like to be on stage in the rehearsals and on the concerts. So far, so good.
Let's say a difficult question. Do you have a favorite among these orchestras?
It's very difficult to find any favorite for me. They're all beautiful. Each one has its own character. It's like, how can you make a favorite between your children? You can't get a favorite child. And I feel like I'm a part of the family in each and every orchestra where I'm chief conductor. So for me, I never even thought to have a favorite. To me, they all are great bands with their unique skills, with their unique qualities, and I feel my duty to help them to shine even more.
Well, from 2021, you'll be joining another family as chief conductor, the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. What are your expectations from that collaboration?
A lot of potential in the orchestra. The orchestra with a huge history. In the current years was a little bit overshadowed by the other London orchestras. So my duty, my task will be to bring them back into the top of the pyramid of London orchestras and obviously world orchestras. This orchestra will also have an anniversary. Royal Philharmonic in 2022-23 will be 75 years old, an anniversary. And this orchestra is at the moment quite young by the age of musicians. So there's a lot of potential, a lot of development to be done, and a lot of development in terms of repertoire. So we will perform more in Royal Festival Hall, in Royal Albert Hall, and we will build up repertoire for those halls. London does not have a perfect concert hall, yet at least, but it does have venues which are really good for the different types of music. Royal Albert Hall for the big symphonies, Mahler symphonies, for instance. Royal Festival Hall for more late romantic classical music. And then there's Cadogan Hall, which is more for classical music. So all 3 venues will fit in repertoire of the orchestra. And of course, more prestigious tours. We're already talking with festival to come back with Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in the future editions.
Well, that would be a great addition to the already amazing lineup that we have here at the festival. You spoke about working with younger musicians. You also are the chief conductor of the European Union Youth Orchestra. How is it to work with that type of musician that is on its way up and its starting point?
It's very special orchestra, UIO. Of course, it is different to most of professional orchestras in many ways. First of all, every year there's a new musicians in the orchestra. It depends on the year, but sometime up to the third of the orchestra are people who are there for the very first time. And they all are extremely talented and probably best of European Union young musicians. But to build a great collective, great team from individuals, this is a task every time. And it's a great pleasure to see how those individuals then bind into the great team. They play, most of them playing the piece which we perform for the very first time. So this approach with wide open eyes and with a full energy without premonition about the piece, you rarely find it in a professional orchestra, because most of musicians there, they have played it for 10 or 20 times. So for that, the energy, the commitment in EUYO is quite incredible. And of course, it is a great example for European Union, how all together we can work positively for the future. Nowadays, with all the things around Great Britain and the other problems, I think it's a very modern message that EU can work together and can function together for the benefits of everyone. And I'm very glad that after a little bit of crisis several years ago, when Euro Commission did a wrong decision, they reconsidered, and now the orchestra is very stable, very well funded, and it has a very good commitment and very secure future.
For this language to get to newer audiences, to younger audiences, do you feel there's a need to make it cool in any way, or is it just is?
I think it's a lot of attention given to what music we perform. I think there need to be more attention about how we perform, not just on stage, but off stage. I think a lot of people still feel that there's sort of big barrier between the stage and the audience. And I think one of the tasks of the classical music is to show and to say that our role is to embrace the society. Our role is to go into society. Our role is to be together with the public, to make the life of public better, not to be somewhere on a pedestal and have someone worshipping us. It's not about that. It's about giving inclusivity for every member of the audience, locally and internationally. So I think for young audience, not just for young, but for any audience, I think we should aim for everyone and not divided by the age or groups or anything. It should be the task to involve everyone, and you can get it only by going into the society. So, for instance, in Oslo, it started where I started about 5-6 years ago. I started to do little short talks before the concert, just myself, in a foyer, in a special place, or from stage. At the beginning, there was a bit of skepticism what the maestro can say. Now, over the years, because I'm not talking about polyphony, syncretic, dodecaphonic systems and very difficult musicologist terms, I'm talking about the music, about the context of the pieces composer was writing, historical parallels, sometimes philosophical parallels. There's a lot of things you can say in a common language about the piece. And it became so popular that now people coming especially for that. So we expanded it into larger place, and I'm doing it now before every concert. This is one of examples. The other is that in a lot of places I have seen it, the member of the orchestra after the concert go into the little reception in a foyer perhaps, mingle and chat with the audience. You should have this human-to-human contact. This is what it's ultimately about. It's not buying a ticket, coming to the hall, going back home and read the press or trying to find on the Facebook how good or bad was concert. It's not about that. It's about having the human contact. It's about making the life of every individual better. That's ultimately what a classical art is about.
How many people do still read reviews of concerts? I think the actual experience is more important.
The experiences are more important, but with all the social networks nowadays, for a lot of people, because also of their habits to the social network, quite a lot of people, and I talked about it, they're coming back home, even not back home, they're going out from the concert hall and they're going to check their Facebook or other networks, and then they're trying to find if someone else was talking about what just happened. And that came into that territory. I think the classical music reviews as they went, let's say 20 years ago, they're going away. It's more into the blogs, into the territories of the social networks, into YouTube, into WhatsApp, into various Instagram, Twitter, new mass media.
Do you feel it like people are seeking these opinions because they are not sure of their opinion?
I think if you look into the threads on any topics, there's a variety of opinions now. And that's probably what is effect of the common world when people can anonymously express their opinion, which can be different to opinions of everyone, or the same as opinion of everyone, to share or to counter, and then to discuss all those topics. It can be about music, it can be about anything. Sometimes I can see, and I ask to provide me some kind of feedback from the various social networks, I can see that they're discussing the prices in a bar, for instance, and quite in severe terms. But it's also good, it creates at least some talks and interests. To be realistic, I think at least if everyone will be given a chance to visit a concert, as early as possible, maybe as a child going with a school into the concert, then more chances that some of the people who have heard it, they will come back to classical music. The problem is that in many places in Europe, a lot of people, they never have been on a classical concert until they are 35 or 40, or even later. If you're not given a chance to experience it, how will you discover? Do you like it or you not like it? With the pop music, we're bombarded by it from everywhere, from adverts, from television, from everywhere. With the classical music, not so. So quite often, you don't have a chance to discover it. That's why I'm trying to encourage everyone to come and see and listen, and then decide for itself. Is it something you want to be back and you want to listen? Or is it maybe something what you don't feel allocated? But giving chance is very important.
Bringing you back to the concerts that you'll have here at the Enescu Festival, one of them will include the Sinfonia Concertante by George Enescu. This is far from your first encounter with his music. What does this music mean to you?
It's an early piece, first of all, and this is Enescu in a sort of early, a little bit more romantic period of his heritage. It's close to Dvořák Brahms' tradition of writing the music, very rhapsodian in terms of shape. Cello has a very difficult part, it's playing almost all the way through non-stop, and quite difficult passages technically. I'm very glad that Johannes Moser, one of the great cellists of nowadays, he shares the stage with us. For the orchestra, it's also, especially for Oslo Philharmonic, who probably played very little pieces by George Enescu over the years, to get into his idiomas, into his language. We have rehearsed in Oslo quite for a long time, and it wasn't easy to get into his language, into his way of connecting voices and thematic structure. So for me, it's the first time I'm conducting this piece, but I'm probably a bit more familiar with his music and with his language. For me, the task was to give this flexibility and fluidity, especially in such piece, to the orchestra, and to make it sound. It's very easy for this piece to make it by bits and fragments, but to make it sound like the whole long structure from the beginning into the last page. This is something what is challenging in this piece. But to me, it's one of the best cello pieces ever written by many composers. It's great concertante, great concerto for the cello and for the orchestra.
If I remember well, a few years ago you conducted Enescu's second symphony. How is it to compare that piece, which is from another period in his life?
I think for the symphony it has much more tension. It has drama, especially in the last moment when all the themes goes together. It felt to me at the time when I was doing the second symphony that it's more into 20th century, with all the edges, with all the drama, with all the war and the terror of the various territories, including later here in Romania. So for that, this is more mature Enescu, who has, let's say, less romantic view on the world. In the Sinfonia Concertante, to me, he still believes much more in the good human nature. He's more optimistic in some ways. He's more radiant, he's more sunny. Even if the piece still has this melancholy and has his traditional drama, especially in harmonic language.
Well, the symphony is a bit cynical, a bit. Let's change a bit the tone, and I want to ask you, when you're not making music, when you're not on the stage, what do you like to do with your free time?
It's not too much of the free time left, but a lot of things. In Norway, who has amazing nature, this is actually walking through the forest, walking in the mountains, swimming in the lakes, enjoying the beautiful landscapes of Norway. And to be on the nature, I think for most of classical musicians, that clears your mind from the sounds of music. We have this task when we leaving the stage after rehearsal or after the concert, the music's still playing in the mind. I'm talking to you, and in the same time, this Sinfonia Concertante is still playing in my mind. I hear it in my mind. So for us to find this sort of relief from it, and to find a moment when you actually has quiet mind, it's very difficult. And nature can help with it, because nothing clear up your soul and your mind rather than sounds of nature. So this is one of example in Norway, for instance. Of course, quite a lot of time I do some sports. I like jogging, running. In Liverpool, playing football with the orchestra. Of course, how can you not do that in Liverpool? But also sightseeing. So when I have a chance, I'm going into the cities and just walking around, looking into the architecture and also into the people, into how this or that city life, the internal life, not tourist life, but internal life is.
It's very interesting talking to you. You're a football aficionado, but I also talked with Denis Matsuev. He's also a football aficionado. What is it with musicians and football?
It's a lot. With Denis, we are good friends, and actually, just a few days ago, we had a plan, because this summer was Tchaikovsky competition when he was the president of jury, and I was conducting and helping the finals of the competition. And by then, spoken to him, we decided 1st of September was a game between Spartak Moscow and Zenit St. Petersburg. He's supporter from Spartak, and I'm, because I'm born in St. Petersburg. And this is like the biggest rivalry in Russian football in Moscow. And I went there, and I planned to be there, and I asked him to also join and to be. But unfortunately, he had some concert which cropped up for the moment, and I texted him from the stadium, because Zenit has won, so I texted him, so how about that? No, but I think for many musicians, it's also a great way to do something else rather than classical music.